Okay, Wrestle Rides with Mike. Why I don't like Brock Lesnar. Now, I am going to say I don't like Brock Lesnar as a person. How about that? I'm going to say I've never met him as a person, but I'm going to say I don't like him as a person. And I'll tell you why. I'll explain it. He just seems... Okay, so no, we use the word seems, but what do I know about him as a person that makes me not want to like him? A, he's using professional wrestling merely as a paycheck. He's admitted to it. Not that he's under inquisition, but he just casually states he does it for the money. They treat him like a fucking Greek conquering god. Vince and associates bend over to accommodate Brock, both in storyline and in contract, and allowing him to keep a part-time schedule, have a declining return of value on his matches, in my opinion. I think that this past year, 2017, they were just wrapping up with a nice little bow on it. You can see that Brock Lesnar's matches, are getting a little bit stale or worse for the most part. I mean, there's exceptions. Obviously, AJ Styles was able to get a great match out of him. The four-man match, which I will admit I did not see, got rave reviews. But I think if you look at the match where it's like, okay, Brock's been around the business, could he have gotten a better match out of Braun Strowman? Braun's 2 or 3 years into the wrestling world and wrestling his first main event and has to get pinned by Brock. Well, it was at SummerSlam or whatever the fuck pay-per-view, or I was going to say one of the In Your Houses, but it's not 1996, for crying out loud. But basically, if Brock does not have a general like AJ, or if it's not the WrestleMania match with Goldberg was pretty good because it was a sock'em bock'em robots match. But if it's Brock, who should be the ring general, with a younger guy like Braun, bringing him up to main event quality, he's not really capable of that. Samoa Joe, who's been around the horn, so to speak, was able to get a good match out of Brock. But once again, I feel like that's Samoa, he's not perfect either, but Samoa Joe, I think, was able to, get a great program out of Brock. And I actually did like the Great Balls of Fire pay-per-view quite a bit from what I remember of it. I kind of liked the title of the damn thing, too. It was different. It was unique, of course, so they don't do it again. Which I guess makes it different and unique if they only do it once. But why don't I like Brock Lesnar? A, he's a steroid freak. I've never taken steroids, and I'm not claiming to be a big, strong muscle man, but I can help you move a couch once in a while, and I've never had to stick a fucking needle in my ass with some type of human growth hormone or some horse steroid. And let's face facts, Brock has tested positive for steroids in the UFC. The WWE, conveniently, because he's on part-time status, apparently doesn't test him. And you're just not going to tell me that Brock Lesnar doesn't do steroids on a regular basis. Whatever he is, probably 40 years old now on the dot. I think it's just it's just a thing where Brock clearly takes steroids. He's proven positive for steroids in the UFC. He apparently has a conniption fit if reporters ask him if he takes steroids, but yet it's been proven that he does. So, I mean, I'm sorry, I just can't respect that. And I think Vince and Triple H, no offense, I'm not trying to cast aspersions on those guys, but I remember reading in one of Triple H's books, he was very ambiguous and very vague, Triple H, about his own feelings on steroids. I don't want to misquote the mighty Triple H, but I think he did say something to the effect of, it's a personal decision. Which basically meant I do them too, you know what I mean? So I think, like, as someone who doesn't take steroids, not that I need to, there's no one asking me to, never been offered, but I find it, a little less godlike or manlike or champion-like. I don't think Lou Thez was taking steroids. I don't think Jack Briscoe, Harley Race, needed to take steroids, okay? That all being said, I just don't like his part-time attitude. The whole thing with Randy Orton a year and a half ago or 2 years ago, SummerSlam, whenever the fuck, with just splitting the guy open. I didn't see that one live either, but it just seemed to ruin a great pay-per-view, or not even a great pay-per-view. It just ruined what could have been a great program. And it kind of just put this, emasculated Randy Orton and his character. And so, yeah, you can say, well, it's his character or it's him? Well, okay. I mean, there's always a blending of these things. There was a UFC fight. I know this goes back and forth, but that's like Brock's career. I guess another thing is he's not really dedicated to wrestling. He's not really dedicated to UFC. He tried his hand at football. He wasn't good enough to get to the major NFL league level. And he just seems like a guy who's very self-important to himself, like we all are. But just a guy who the world revolves around fucking King Brock. And you have a little parrot like Paul Heyman, a big fat penguin in a suit, always saying how great Brock Lesnar is. And it's a good little act. It's a good little routine. It's stale as fuck. But, I mean, people like you get into it because you sing along with Paul and you dance around when Brock does his little shoulder jig. You do your little shoulder jig thinking you're Brock. The streak, that was the one WrestleMania of my adulthood that I didn't watch live was, I guess it was 30, where Brock ended the streak of The Undertaker. I was on a film set of some kind. And so I didn't experience that WrestleMania moment, so to speak, which might have, changed my views a little bit, but I remember thinking that Brock might win going into that match because I remember thinking, but I thought that if Brock were to win, it would either be Undertaker's last Mania match or he would come back for one more Mania match the year after and beat Brock in a rematch, which he didn't. Here's a whole other tangent, but it's related. I don't like the way that The Undertaker, yes, Mark Calloway or Mark Callis, I don't like the way that The Undertaker, Big Red, kind of sequesters himself or acquiesces to Brock Lesnar. Okay, look, everyone's got respect for The Undertaker. He's untouchable as far as respect. It's the one thing I don't like about The Undertaker, really, is how, of all these great wrestlers who really respect the business, who respects the business the most? The Undertaker. Yet he's allowed the character of The Undertaker to suffer defeat after defeat after defeat. Not only in this most recent 2014 to 2016 era, but also going way back to like the 2002, 2003, losing to him in a Hell in a Cell, losing to him, I think, in a chain match. I don't know if fucking Undertaker's ever really beaten Brock. He did have that sort of submission, not really a tap out, but a submission to the pin thing a couple of years ago in that rematch, which was just not a great finish. And I just don't know why. I think Undertaker has a thing. Look, I'm not trying to put my mind into his, but I think in Undertaker's mind, if Brock Lesnar is the one guy who can beat The Undertaker, but nobody else can really damage him so much, that makes them both look great. But then Brock didn't really take that into consideration when he so happily jobbed out to fucking Goldberg in a minute and a half. It's like it kind of tainted that. So that I get that psychology. The psychology is every guy has one guy who can beat him that he can't really beat until he beats him, and then he's beaten him. And that's a thing that's a good little gimmick, a good little thing where you have that fatal flaw, that one opponent that can't beat you. And I think what in Brock's, or probably more like Heyman's mind, they were trying to do was establish Goldberg as that for Brock, which was fine. But at the same time, it diminished all the Randy Ortons, all the fucking Undertakers, all the guys, John Cena for crying out loud. And I'm not a big Cena fan. But I just think that Brock, his mentality or his modality is just all about him, all about Brock. And sure, he's an alpha male, he's a wrestler, blah, blah, blah. But I just don't think he loves the wrestling business or the fans. I mean, not that he has to, but he could show a little appreciation. Going back to UFC, when he flicked off all the fans, he won the title. I think either he beat Randy Couture, he won some unification thing. And I think it was a some type of merger deal or unification of the fucking... I hate that a UFC of the, what do they call it? The interim champion. I always hated that. But he won the title, Brock did, and then he flicked off all the fans. And, he said he was going to go home and have sex with Sable. And who cares? I mean, So bottom line is, and Brock can't cut a promo. I mean, maybe if he actually tried, he could. He probably could if he tried. But the little parrot act with Paul Heyman gets old because Paul Heyman, look, buddy, Paul, you were ECW, you were hardcore, you were the king of Philadelphia wrestling, you were the guy that made the Tommy Dreamers and the Sandmans and the Ravens, epic, okay? But all those guys like that who really cared about wrestling and cared about hardcore wrestling, those guys don't get the attention and the fawning from Paul Heyman that Brock does. Just the unmitigated ass sucking that Heyman does to Brock these days. And, it is what it is. It is what it is. But it to me, the Brock Lesnar character or the Brock Lesnar persona or the person of Brock Lesnar, I don't like him. I would say that Mike Tyson, I probably put in that same regard, just guys that I don't like. And what's the key to that is you can say, well, I'm going to live my life and not pay money for their matches or whatever the fuck. But if you do, it's fine, I was listening to George Carlin comedy, and he basically said, you're born into this world and you've been given a front row seat as an American to the fucking circus. So just watch the circus. Don't try to fix the circus. Don't try to make the circus not be the circus. The circus will always be the circus. You get the clowns, you get the elephant, you got the tuxedo-clad maestro, the dancing girls, the ballerinas, whatever the fuck, the elephants. And so just these Brock Lesnars and these Mike Tysons and these Floyd Mayweathers and even these Conor McGregors and Manny Pacquiao and all these freaks, Kardashian, they're all part of the circus. We're just attending it, okay? So that's George Carlin with a little bit of me throwing some stuff in there, but I'll give credit to George. So that's my rant about why I don't like Brock Lesnar. Now you can be saying, well, I love Brock Lesnar. Fuck you. Well, go ahead. I mean, he's got the fucking F5. What else does he do? He does a shoulder dance. He jumps onto the canvas, which is impressive. I mean, he's gotten to slip a few times lately, and you're kind of wondering, is he going to slip and twist his ankle one of these times? I'm trying to think what other great fucking moves. I mean, Suplex City, bitch, blah, blah, blah. I mean, Taz was doing that 20 years ago. Who gives a fuck? So my basic point is this. Is Brock Lesnar that great? No. He is basically his match. I mean, I'm sorry, but everyone pisses on Triple H, but can you tell me that Brock Lesnar's matches are better than Triple H? Or they're not in the league, obviously, of Brett or Sean or any of those assholes, or even, someone who I don't particularly care for, Daniel Bryan or someone like that. But, I mean, are you going to tell me that a Brock Lesnar match, yeah, they do the big fight feel, but it's because they promote it that way, It's not because of anything that Brock has done. It's because you got the parrot Heyman, you get the machine of Vince, and everybody circle jerks about a Brock Lesnar match. But he's not terribly that much better than anybody else. And he's not that charismatic. He is an invention of your own imagination as to what a mega bully should be. And if that's what gets you excited, then that's what gets you excited. Like I say, I'm not gonna go into protest with a sign above my head about Brock Lesnar or march on Washington about Brock Lesnar matches. But I'm just saying he's no Jack Briscoe. He's not a Kurt Angle. He's really, if he didn't take 12 years off or whatever the fuck it was between, I guess, 2002 and 2012, if that's 10 years, whatever, to find himself or to explore his options or whatever the fuck, if he didn't do that, his ranking with me might be a little higher. But I just think it's been a dog and pony show, and I think people have just kind of subscribed to the supposed legacy of Brock Lesnar long enough. And now that he's starting to look like the Crusher or the Bruiser. I mean, if you really look at Brock now, I mean, compare him when he was fighting Braun Strowman once again, he looked old. He looked like the Crusher or the fucking Bruiser or Baron Von Raschke coming out there. So my simple point is this. Don't believe the hype. Don't buy into it. For the Paul Heyman parrot fans of the world who want to sing along with Paul, go ahead. His name is Paul Heyman, etc. But I mean, I've met Paul Heyman. He's not that great a guy, okay? So don't lie to yourself or tell you that he gives a fuck about you. He doesn't. So that's it. Mike Messier with my thoughts. Why I don't like Brock Lesnar. You can like him all you want. Merry Christmas. It's just my thoughts.